Hello, everyone, and welcome to A New Direction. My name is Jay Izzo, and oh, man, we have a great show. I am telling you, I know I say it every week, right? Jay, you always say every week you got a great show. I'm just telling you, it's because it is hard when you have great guests and you have great books. It is hard not to have a great show, and we have and this is a stunning show. And let me tell you why this is going to be such a stunning show, because we're going to do something so different. Because my guest this week, Michael S. Seaver, wrote this book called I know.
Jay knows.
He knows. We know. I know. I know. And I'm just tell you something. He's going to be fantastic. You're going to love him. The book is great because, look, folks, let's be honest with yourself. Michael is an executive coach. I'm a coach. And we get, you know why people call us? The people call us because they go, I want you to help me change my business. That's what they do. They go, I want you to help me change my business. And you know, do you know what Michael and I understand at the heart of all this? It's not going to just change. It's an entity unless you change. That's the truth. Bam. This is where I drop the mic. Okay? If it wasn't hanging on this stanchion here, okay, I'd be dropping the mic. That's where I'd be dropping the mic. But the truth of the matter is, nothing changes if you don't change. And change is hard. And there's a number of reasons that change is hard. And Michael and I are going to talk about that, how we go through the process of change and to help your business. But what we're going to talk about as we move through, there's so many things. There's emotional intelligence and why that's important to to changing our business and who we are. And also work-life balance, how we make that happen. Can you get your people in your business to be coaches? Ooh, Michael talks about that. Because you know what, you could be doing some coaching things here with your folks who could be coaching some of your folks, right? Do you know what your core values are personally? How about it? Do you? Do you know what your mission statement is? Do you have a personal mission statement? I mean, can you rattle it off? Can you say, can I understand it? Is it clear? Yeah, Michael's going to help us work through that. Before we get to him, though, let's do what we do. Great. I walk you through the 4 areas of your life. Look, we are physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual people. And the fact of the matter is, we need to be daily in training, right? I've interviewed a major general who's in the Iraq War. I've interviewed special operations forces guys on this show. And they've all said the same thing. If you're not training every day, you're not growing. And if you're not growing, you're dying. And we need to be growing every day in these 4 areas: physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. So we do it really simply. So join me out there, everybody who's out there listening worldwide. And by the way, I know that you have a lot of options, and I am so grateful that you're joining us here today, right? And so is Michael. I know he is too. And for those who are watching on DB&A TV and all over, thank you. We appreciate you so much. Okay, so the 4 areas: physically. So like on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being 10 being woo, right? 5 being average. How would you say you're doing physically, like in terms of your exercise, getting enough sleep, drinking enough water, your diet? How would you rank yourself?
So are you asking for me?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead, Michael. If you want to. How would you rank scale 1 to 10? What would you rank yourself?
This is an incredible question that everybody listening needs to really think about. And I'm going to rate myself an 8, Jay. I'm at an 8 right now. I feel good.
You feel good. Okay. So, all right. So folks, let's say you're not an 8. Let's say you're a 2. It doesn't matter. That's a starting place. What you have to look at in these areas is, then what can I do if I'm a 2 or if I'm an 8, like Michael is? What do I need to do to get to an 8.5 or 2.5? You know, what do I need to change? We don't need to go from a 2 to a 10. Michael doesn't need to go from an 8 to a 10. Michael just needs to get a little bit better, right? Because that's all we need to do. We need to do baby steps here, okay? So what do you need to change? Is it diet? Is it exercise? Right? Is it maybe you're not sleeping well. Maybe you're not sleeping enough. Maybe you need to go maybe you haven't had a physical in a while. Right? All right, so that's your first number, right? Whatever that number is. Second number is the mental number. Look, we have 2 halves of brain, right half, left half, right? Right half is our creative side, left half is more of our logical side, right? Truth is, we need to be an active participant in our mental growth. The fact of the matter is, we cannot sit on a couch and let the TV shout at us and think that we're somehow learning something. The fact of the matter is, we need to be an active participant in that. In order to be an active participant, you need to be doing something like read a book. That's not a bad idea. Take up an instrument, learn a foreign language, doing something to grow in your knowledge of your job. When's the last time you studied in whatever your career is to grow in your career? Because you've done it for so long. Why should you, right? No. Growth is a lifetime thing, especially mentally. So on a scale of 1 to 10, what would you give yourself? Michael?
I'm going to say a 7 on this one because I still have a lot of work to do, but I feel very grateful in all the things that I've accomplished thus far.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
All right, so yeah, 1 to 10. You got 2 numbers, right? Third number is the emotional number. I make this really simple because emotionally can be kind of complicated, right? And we talk about emotional intelligence. Matter of fact, Michael's going to talk about emotional intelligence, but we've talked about Daniel Kahneman and all these folks who have written about emotional intelligence. And the truth of it is, it comes down to 2 things, right? One is how well are you able to control your emotions under stress and pressure? And then 2, how well are you able to tap into and understand the emotions of others? See, I told you you're a lot like Michael here. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how well would you say you're doing that?
I'm a 5 or a 6, but for the audience to really think about this, that's a good one, right? Because there's so many ways that we grow and navigate our own lives, and then to have to extrapolate and think about the growth that the people that we're hanging out with are going through at the same time. It's a ton.
It is, right?
Yeah.
It's hard. It's difficult because the fact of the matter is we're under stress and pressure every day. We've been in a pandemic for 2 years. If you don't think you're under emotional stress and pressure, you have been. How well are you able to control it? By the way, you're always can control your emotions if you want to, right? No one should ever control your emotions. When we say, well, they made me feel that way, nobody can make you feel that way. You have choices. Not saying it's easy, but you have choices, right? So there's your third. You got 3 numbers now. Fourth number, spiritual number. A lot of you out there going, I'm not really spiritual, Jay. I'm just not spiritual. I'm just not a spiritual person. Well, listen, if you take away the physical, mental, and emotional, you're left with the spiritual. The fact of the matter is we all, when things go south, when things go bad, we run to something. Whatever that first thing that you run to is, believes that you have faith that's going to fix it. That becomes your God. That becomes a thing that you believe is going to change you. And then there's a thing that brings you back to center in this place of peace, whether that be God or nature or meditation or whatever that may be for you, right? Right? You do have something that brings you back there. You may not be thinking about it that way. And the truth is you have faith. The fact of the matter is when you took a spoonful of cereal this morning, you believed it wasn't going to be poisonous. Now, you may not have consciously thought that, but the truth of the matter is we live by faith every day. You probably had a couple meals today. You're drinking water. Michael's looking at his water going, what, now is it poisonous or not? The matter is we assume that it is because we have faith that it isn't. So the question becomes, how's it working for you? And is it working? And then what do you need to do to change it? So on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you say you're doing spiritually?
I'm a 6, Jay. I was raised a Christian, but I'm really interested in Buddhism and Hinduism and learning kind of the intricacies of Islam and Judaism. I want to figure out how they all fit together.
Got it. All right. So there you got 4 numbers, right? Those 4 numbers are like the legs of a chair. If the legs of a chair are uneven, you're going to sit in that long-term prayer. What happens? Bad posture, pain, right? You get, if at the same time, if the numbers are too low, what happens? You can't sit at a normal table and eat nutritiously. So we want to bring those all up together. We want to have them in balance, and we want to eat and nutritiously at the right height. And speaking of someone who's got that, and you heard him, he actually does. His name is Michael Seaver. He is a certified professional behavior analyst, a senior professional in human resources, and a Thunderbird Global School of Global Management MBA graduate. He is owner of Seaver Consulting, a coaching practice specializing in coupling Eastern philosophy, positive psychology, and business strategy concepts to unlock human potential. He is author of 2 books entitled Fearing Mediocrity and Incorporating You. And I know to what's within and finding a work-life integration. He also serves as Thunderbird's Director of Career Management, Alumni Services, and Engagement, and also as Vice Chairman of the Phoenix Business and Workforce Development Board. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the show and welcome for the first time, Michael S. Seaver. Welcome, Michael.
You are tremendous, Jay. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being on. So we're going to do something a little different here, folks. We're 2 coaches, and we're going to do a little coach-to-coaching, as I talked about in the intro here before we got started. And so, Michael, one of the things, first of all, the book is divided up into 3 sections, and the first section, is part 1, is called Dilemma. And, people hire you and I to do what we do because They want to change their business ultimately. And I mean, some people do hire us for life change, but a lot of times it seems it's a business thing, right? They want to be a bit more profitable or whatever the issue is in business. But the truth of the matter is, isn't it? We can't expect, if you're the head of a business, we can't expect the business to change if you don't change first. True?
So true. And it's so difficult to think of the world that way because the mental models that we were given as youngsters, because society has gone through so much transformation and change, especially in the last couple of years, but even let's say since the advent of the internet, we really have to be mindful of how we can facilitate and affect change at scales now that we might not have ever considered before. So important that we put ourselves at the center of those models of change and being proactive as opposed to being reactive.
And this is, change means a lot of things, but I think at the simplest level, you, in part one of Dilemma, you say, quote, we have to let go of and shed old beliefs, habits, and ways of being. That's not easy, is it? Because as Lipton pointed out, we kind of got ingrained from a very young age to get rid of some of these things that we just carry with us that we don't realize are serving us.
Yeah, so true. And I think people, there's not a whole lot of public information about this. And I think we're doing great as a society in sharing it more. But there's 5 major brainwave states on which your brain functions and the neurons fire. So from birth until age 6, your brain's in the theta brainwave state, basically meaning that everything that happens in the environment around you gets baked straight into your subconscious, right? Which is your operating model, your computer, right? How it is that you go through navigating life. So as you move past age 6 into roughly age 7, your brain goes into beta brainwave state predominantly or most of the time. And that's a very conscious state. But in order to make those conscious choices, we have to pull from some unconscious model. And so that model comes from everything that you're taught from birth until age 6. So most of the time, Jay and I are coaching people who are repeating habits and behaviors that they were taught from acculturation and being a part of society and the things that their parents taught them from birth until age 6. They're just unknowingly repeating those same models as they navigate life until they encounter some sort of an event that shakes them to their core and says, gosh, it's time for me to shed that mental model, that behavior, or that way of being, because as I'm growing and navigating my life, it no longer serves me.
And this is right. This is one of the things, as a coach, it's really sometimes hard to explain to people that it's not that our parents did us a disservice, right? I mean, it's they didn't do anything intentionally. They weren't trying to hurt us here. But I mean, you and I both grew up in the Midwest. We both grew up basically on a farm, right? I mean, I was in Nebraska, you were in Michigan,
Yep.
and we're farm boys, basically. And our parents had a particular work ethic, and they wanted us to work in a particular way. And you probably heard the same thing I heard growing up is, well, I just want you to be better than me, right? And so they are giving us all sorts of things that they believe in their goodness of their heart are going to help them be better than them. But it's hard for us to be better than someone when you're holding on to your own previous parents' beliefs, right? I mean, when you start thinking about it, right?
Oh yeah, there is no ill will. I really believe this in my heart of hearts, Jay, that any parent, any guardian, any caregiver doesn't intentionally harm or try to instill into their children a mental model that is going to hurt them later in life. I really believe that that's true. And so we have to honor and respect and show gratitude for our parents for doing the absolute best that they can, remembering that they were learning to be an adult at the time that they were raising us. They were learning a process of becoming themselves and being a member of society and hopefully uncovering their life's mission or their core values at that time. So they were learning and growing and navigating life the best they could, doing the best they could to then help us. I spent a lot of time, Jay, cutting grass, shoveling dirt, and plowing snow in those younger years. So I learned a lot of really cool core values from that experience. But inside of that, there was also some hardship too. But that's life for every human on the planet.
Right. And this is the part of where when we have to start taking a look at these things that we've been given, not by our choice necessarily, but that we've been given, that we have to start taking a look at them. And you and I have been using a phrase called "that does not serve you." And there may be some people out there who are watching. By the way, thank you everybody across the world who's watching. I'm looking this thing light up. Maybe we need to explain what we mean by that, things that don't serve you.
The way that I see it, Jay, is that, and I refer to this in I Know as being an Earth School curriculum. I believe that every person comes to Earth with this these series of things and experiences and a series of emotions that they're designed to go through to help them become better versions of themselves, right? Or to help them thereby contribute to the betterment of others. And so when something is serving you, it means that it could be good or bad, right? You could perceive it as good or bad. But if the thing is helping you, it serves you, helps you to become more aligned with your core values or your life's mission, right? That's in the service of you. Because we're very quick to think that if something negative happens to us, that it's not in our service. And that isn't always true. Right. Sometimes the tough events are the thing that actually realign us with our life path in order for us to then become the ideal version of who it is we're supposed to become.
Right. And you and I talk about we're going to, I want people to understand that there's some terminology here that we're going to use back and forth, and we're meaning the same thing. He's going to talk about Earth's curriculum. I may use the word purpose because we both believe that ultimately everything that happens to you serves ultimately for a bigger purpose. And I believe that purpose means that whatever you do in your life's Earth curriculum, whatever it is that you are going to do, it's not meant to serve yourself. It's going to be about serving others ultimately. Are we?
Yeah.
Can we agree with that as being similar on that path?
At the top of Maslow's hierarchy of needs is the need for personal growth and development, which we then convert into being able to teach our life's lessons to contribute to the betterment of others. So if we're in the service of ourselves, we are then in the service of others. You and I are on the same page.
Okay. All right. Good. I just want to make sure so that people aren't going, well, he said Earth curriculum, he's saying purpose. We're saying the same things. Okay. So, and of course you have a great story here because you found this, you just kind of were on a self-discovery path, and it was almost self-destructive for you. And as a matter of fact, it got as close as to completely self-destructive as possible. And you and Cleo flip the switch, your cat, which is, by the way, you know what? I really believe that God sends animals sometimes to awaken us. I really do. I believe that in my whole heart.
Yep.
So, but I want to talk about this journey because we're going to have to change things. You're a business owner. People listening, you're in business. You want your business to change. It means that you have to change first. Change isn't easy. And let's talk about that, why change is not easy. And let's talk about that in terms of change and loss, because even the bad things that we're trying to get rid of create loss for us.
Yeah.
And grief.
Yeah. And so as you mentioned, the very first section of the book is dilemma, and it's how do we process or overcome fear? How do we process loss? And how do we release emotions? So my belief is that when we have to end and let go of something, we have to do some very deep introspection at that. And so thankfully, when I was going through those periods of loss and kind of confronting my fears or having to do some emotional release, thankfully, Cleopatra was there very, very close by with me. And so anytime that we need to shift into this next version of our life or become the next version of what our identity is actually designed to be, or to take one step closer to our purpose, as Jay says, we have to shed and let go of the mental models that provided us comfort before. So we used to identify with a certain group, with a certain team, with a certain university, with a certain fill in the blank. But we're at this place now where we have to say, we have to leave some of those things behind to create some space in our soul and our heart to identify exactly what it is that we need next in order to become the more close version of what our purpose is.
And, when we're talking about making these changes, right? And you and I are constantly with CEOs, C-suite professionals, founders, entrepreneurs, people who own their own companies. When we start talking about change, even the things that don't serve them, it's hard for them to let go.
Yeah.
Why is that? Why do you think, based on your experience, and we'll talk about this together, but why is it so hard for us to let go of it? Because I have some ideas of why I believe why that change, even things that aren't serving us well, why that's so hard to let go. But I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I'd love to hear your ideas too here, because I think We get so comfortable in the routines and the habits and the rituals that we have day to day that the thought of even having to change one of those things triggers fears in us, right? And there's 4 kind of core fears that exist for people just in general: fear of vulnerability, fear of not being liked, fear of loss of security, or fear of being criticized in some way. And so anytime we have to make a change, one of those fears is going to pop up and prevent us from actually making the change. So there's a safety and a comfort, and then one of your fears is going to be triggered. And then you have to overcome that fear in order to step into this new identity of who you are.
Yeah. So fear is at the basis of all of it. I really believe that wholeheartedly. But I think, one of the things I see when it comes to fear is it's fear of the unknown. If I've lived with this so long, and even I would rather wallow in my own pigsty of garbage, right, than to embrace the light of the unknown, because the unknown, I don't know what that is. And I think often what happens is people would rather hold on to their crud, right? Because if they get rid of that, then what? Because, we've made it such a part of our life, right? And, we rationalize it, so easily of saying, well, it is who I am, right? And I don't want to let go because I feel like I'm losing a part of me.
Yeah.
Right. So so here comes the next fear, right? I fear I lose myself, right? Because we go, but it's a part of who I am. And if I lose myself, I'm losing my identity on some level. And the truth is, no. Right. I mean, and you say this in I'm going to paraphrase you, that we're on so much on the same page on this. You're not losing yourself. In fact, you're shedding that self so that the real you shows up.
Yeah. I love what you're saying, Jay, because it reminds me of the simplicity of a snake that is shedding its skin. And so that's all that I really want people watching and listening to remember, is that it's just that one layer, right? As you're navigating that change, it's just that one layer that's shedding. And it's the interior of your heart and your soul and your talents and your skills and your strengths. Now you're being given new ways in which to express them. So yes, it's hard to let go of something old, but just imagine that it's just some old stale skin that just needs to be let go, so this other, better, more expressive part can be shown.
His name is Michael S. Seaver. The book is entitled, I know, A Practical Guide for Awakening to What's Within and Finding Your Worth Life Integration. You're listening to him here on A New Direction. Hey, folks, 2 great sponsors, Epic Physical Therapy. They're my physical therapists. I think they should be yours too, by the way. You know what? Listen, they train people like me who sometimes just want to move a little bit better or after a surgery, but they also work with professional athletes, the college athletes, high school athletes, right? Whatever it is, they can work with you, and they would love to. Heidi and Andrew and their staff are awesome. So listen, when you're ready for your epic relief, your epic recovery, and your epic results, start with Epic Physical Therapy. And Linda Craft and Team Realtors. You know what? This market's getting tough and it's getting weird. Right? I mean, interest rates are changing in the housing market. No, who knows, right? Well, you know what? Linda Craft knows. She started a business in 1985 when interest rates were 18%. She's been through recessions. She kind of knows how to handle when interest rates go up and down. Trust me, if you need confidence, right, and you need support, and you want somebody who really knows how to navigate this market, I would say go ahead and tie your boat over there to Linda Craft and Team Realtors. You can learn more by going to lindacraft.com. That's LINDACRAFT.com. And listen, DB&A TV, our official beverage is Hint Water. And you know what? Strawberry kiwi is one of my favorites. I think it should be yours too. Check out Hint Water. They're awesome. I love them. And I think you will too. And we're back here on A New Direction as Michael is laughing at me doing my inline commercials, which is awesome.
I just love your energy, Jay. I just want some of your energy. How do I get it? How do I get it?
First of all, what you do is you wake up just being grateful. That's the first. I tell this to everybody. I have these little cards called gratitude cards for people who are watching on TV. I try to write down every day 7 things I'm grateful for first thing when I get up in the morning. And I am energized by being grateful and being able to control my attitude every day. And I have an awesome wife who I love dearly, and she gives me great energy. And I I am right in the heart of my Earth's curriculum, my purpose, and that gives me energy. And I had a great workout again today. I started this is my second week of this new workout routine, and I just loved it. And so I'm kind of jacked about it too as well. So who knows? It's just life, man. So we're talking about change and how difficult it is to change. I thought it would be important here, though, that we talk about Martin Seligman's who was the father of positive psychology, because there are the 3 Ps that are not true, but we fall into these 3 Ps really easily. So I mean, and I've got them here, so don't worry. You don't panic. I've got them right here for you. The first P is personalization, the belief that we are at fault when a loss occurs. Let's talk about that for a second.
Yeah. It's so easy for us because we're so connected to the comfort of the past. It's so easy that when something happens around us, it's easy for us to blame ourselves for something. If it's the loss of a job, loss of a loved one, loss of some other thing that we used to have access to that we no longer do, that it's easy for us to take on the onus and responsibility for that, which is admirable, but not always true. And it's hard for us to think that there are many things in our lives that are out of our control, but frankly, there are many things happening around the world right now that are completely out of our control.
Right.
And so it's hard for us to get to that place. And so it's just remember that there's many, many, many things in our lives we can't control. Focus in on the things that you can as much as possible, and stay focused on saying, this event happened either to me or for me. And sometimes I might have done something that contributed to that, but oftentimes I did not do anything to contribute to it, and just be mindful of that dichotomy or that difference.
Right. And I think the part of this that's so important, and you really hint at this, and you talk about this actually in the book. The truth of the matter is, regardless, I have a choice of how I'm going to respond to it.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's that there's always space, Jay, between the stimulus that you receive into your 5 senses.
Right.
And there's always a space. And then between you receiving the stimulus and your capacity to respond. Right. So true emotional intelligence, Jay, is just the pause between the stimulus and how it is that you choose to respond.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Love that. Love. You know me and the psych stuff. I love that. All right. Second P is pervasiveness, the belief that an event will affect all areas of our life.
Yeah. And I think that happens so many times, Jay, probably for you and I both, is that if we were coaching somebody who happens to lose a job, the vast majority of their friends or the people that they know in their personal life are still going to be a part of their life. Right. So we might lose some connections or friendships or things that might exist inside that certain job. That's true. But the vast majority of your friendships, your family relationships, the things that are happening for you day to day are not going to be affected. And so when in those moments, you just heard Jay say it a second ago, those 7 points of gratitude, yes, there might be that one thing in your life that's ending, but the vast majority of your life, especially if you practice gratitude, is going to remain almost basically the same. So let's focus in on what remains the same.
Yeah, because the truth of the matter is, when we do make change, right? Many times your friends are going to change. Some of them, right? I mean, like if let's say, you quit drinking, right? Which I have a lot of friends who've quit drinking. They decide that, you know what, I'm done. Well, it's kind of changed their friends who they hang out with. But you know what? I mean, for those of us who support that, who put our arm around them, we've just become closer.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, there's a newer depth, right? So you might have lost a friend that only really liked your company when there was alcohol involved,
right?
But you actually might pick up more depth with a different friend that actually gives you a more deep feeling, like a fulfillment or acceptance that doesn't require any beverage at all.
Right. And what it did is, here's the pervasiveness part of it, right? That event, right, didn't affect everything. It may have affected a little piece of it, but you end up getting greater depth.
Yeah.
Right. And in experiencing unconditional love and grace and mercy from another human being that you may not have experienced before.
Yeah. Oh, so you're so right. You're so right.
Right. That's so powerful.
Yeah. We really want that at very, very deep levels. So there's a book that I reference actually inside of I Know by Jennifer J. Deal, called Retiring the Generation Gap. And there are 10 principles by which all humans around the world function. And so we all desire trust. We all desire respect. We all desire to have those close-knit relationships around us. And so sometimes the loss of one particular type of friendship just opens the door for depth and meaning in ways that you might not have contemplated before.
It's so beautiful. All right, third P, all right, permanence, the belief that the aftershocks of the loss will last forever.
Yeah. I think we tend to overlook just how quick the pace of our society is changing. So change just happens very naturally, but with the advent of technology and globalization and the World Wide Web, we get so focused in on something new happening via the news media or in our life that grabs our attention, that grabs our focus. And so if something happens right now, now picture any celebrity that you want who has had some sort of negative event happen in their life, 4, 5, 6 months later, they're back on stage, they're back on screen, they're back on the ball field, the golf course, fill in the blank. And people recognize and honor that they're human, right? Some sort of mistake has been made, but it's not permanent. It doesn't affect their life for the entirety of the rest of their life. They can still go back to doing the things that they love most.
Right. Yeah. Well, the first thing that came to mind was Tiger Woods. I don't know, but I mean, right? I mean, right. And yet I want to see him. I want to see it. We got the PGA Championship, I think, or something coming up this week.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
I want to see that.
Yeah.
And I want to see him play. And not only do I want to see him play, I want to see him play great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. I mean, because I want him to perform. I know he's had stuff in his life. You know what the truth of the matter is? Who hasn't?
If we extend a second chance or some grace to the people around us, they're going to extend it back. And I think that that's a really important thing here is that we're humans. We make mistakes. That's how we learn. Actually, it's the best way we learn. Right. So if you're going to make those mistakes and learn from them, and you watch other people around you do the same thing, offer them grace, I promise you the law of reciprocity will kick in and they'll do the same thing for you.
God, you and I and that law of reciprocity thing. You read Cialdini's book too, didn't you?
Yes, sir.
I love that book, Power of Influence. I love that book. Law of reciprocity. Folks, it really does work. You may call it karma, people out there, but the truth of the matter is you just trust me. It all comes back. It really does. Do you want to say something? Because you're about ready to jump in.
You nailed it. I loved Cialdini's stuff. I got to meet him a few years ago at a Berkshire Hathaway conference, and just salt of the earth guy. It was really good.
Right. Really, really cool dude. Right. Yeah. Really just a really good guy. Yeah. Okay. So you have your 5-step processing law step by step. And so I thought maybe we could run through this real quick, because as people are trying to change and get rid of loss, first in is check in with yourself.
Gosh, that's so important, because it's when we think about checking in with ourselves, we have to take a minute to say, what was it that triggered us, right? Because there was some sort of event, the loss, something around us. Like, what was it? What was the actual event that triggered us? Why is it that we're feeling the way that we're feeling, right? Get more in touch with your emotions in a deep and meaningful way to identify kind of the hows, the whats, and the whys, because over time, you're going to notice a pattern. And so if we're checking in with ourselves first to start the process of identifying those patterns, that gives us data by which to be able to make different choices in the future. So that's number one.
Number two, find emotional safety.
So maybe that for you is a journal. Maybe that is a therapist or a coach like Jay or Michael, or maybe that is going out into nature and just having time by yourself, right? We have emotional safety when we have the capacity to express ourselves, and that can be alone through journaling or through just spending time reading or doing something. Maybe it's a therapist, maybe it's talking to a group of people. I don't know, but we have to be able to find a safe place to authentically tell the story. So important.
Number three, share with others.
Yep. And so that's the key piece, is that maybe it's the individual, maybe it's the group. You get to pick and choose how you go about doing it. But when you share, you take all of those pent up and stale emotions inside your body and you get them out. And that's absolutely critical, because Daniel Goleman and Louise Hay and Carol Truman, all of these doctors for years and years and years have found a direct link between when we store emotion in our body and don't express it, it causes physical ailment. And we do not want physical ailment.
All right. No, we don't. Number four. No, we don't. Number 4, take action.
So this could be different things for different people, right? I'm actually an introvert, and so I recharge my batteries by being alone. And so after you've had time to be able to really think about how is it that you've just talked about that loss, what is it you're going to do next? So sometimes in this case, I would ask a client to keep a pain journal. So for a couple of weeks, as they're navigating the loss, as they're navigating the thing that they need to release, keep a pain journal of those moments when you're feeling that loss and that emotion, so you can start to identify the patterns about what's reminding you of that loss, or maybe some strategies or tips that you can deploy to make sure that you don't repeat those behaviors from before.
And then number 5, practice consistency.
Yeah. Again, coming back to Robert Cialdini, right? Law number 2, the law of consistency, or what sometimes he refers to as the law of commitment, is that we as human beings don't ever want to be perceived as irrational. So we maintain very rational behavior. If we tell somebody in our lives that we've experienced some sort of a loss and we're trying to get through it, the best thing that we can absolutely do is make sure that we're very consistent in talking to people continually about that, or continuing to use the journal, or continuing to have like maybe an accountability partner hold us accountable to what it is that we're trying to do next to move past the loss. But it's just time daily or weekly where we make this top of mind and we make it important.
So beautifully done, by the way.
Thank you.
So one of the things that you talk about, and I talk about it too, and it stokes me when I talk about the word authenticity. And the word gets thrown around a lot in coaching circles. I know that you hear it a lot. I hear it a lot. But I think you and I have a really different perspective. I don't know, maybe it's not that different, but I think we have a unique perspective on authenticity. I call my company's called Coaching Mavericks, because Maverick is somebody that is authentic to me. Growing up in the Midwest and still wearing cowboy boots and cowboy hats and belt buckles and being on ranches and farms, that Maverick was that unbranded cow or unbranded cowboy that, you walked into the room and you knew that no matter whatever happened in life, that human being stands on their own, in their own way, in their own uniqueness, right? They've been given. And I feel that oftentimes people want to consider themselves authentic, but they're truly not living authentically. And I think you think the same thing, but let's talk through that a little bit.
Yeah, it goes back to what we talked about at the beginning of the show, Jay, where people are given these mental models and these behaviors and these habits and these emotional responses from their family at those very young ages. And so my version of authenticity is being able to clearly call out when you are repeating those mental models given to you by your family, you making the choice to shed them. And then over a period of time, because, post May of 2019, when I was contemplating suicide and going through some pretty tough stuff, I'm still on a journey here, 3 years later, almost to the day, actually. So I'm glad we're having this conversation today. So You're very, very supportive and uplifting of me. So thank you.
Wow.
But here we are, is that I'm still on this journey of figuring out how to become the most authentic version of myself. And the way that I perceive this is that it's an upward spiral. Is that every single time that we do a good job of not being triggered by the things that we used to be triggered by before, we don't repeat some sort of an emotional response or behavior that we were taught to, we're one step closer to being the most authentic version of ourselves. We're one step closer to that ideal version of our purpose or Earth School curriculum. So it's just you being able to control. Another way to look at this would be to say authenticity is a level of engagement or living up to your potential or being 100% control in where you distribute time. And maybe that's another way to look at it too, in a more kind of fashion sense.
Well, yes, I agree with you. I think, though, something that you said, we talked about it a little bit, but I think we don't acknowledge this enough. Is we will say things like, "What would you do if you knew you couldn't fail?" Right? We say that, but I was given something by another author. Who wrote Tracy Fenton, who wrote Freedom in the Workplace, who changed that on me and it opened my eyes to say this, because you say this without saying it. What would you do if you were not afraid?
I love that.
Right? Because you said, and I quote you here, and this is from your key takeaways in chapter 2, you said, by confronting fears, we no longer have to prove ourselves. We can simply live authentically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm glad that you brought that up, because we've already talked about the challenge in overcoming fears, because as soon as we start to navigate the process of change, we're going to be confronted by the fear. But when you no longer feel emotionally triggered by any external stimuli,
Right.
It's no longer a fear, right? It's just something. It's just part of your path. It's just part of your journey that you have to navigate and work through or learn from. That's really all it is. And so anytime that you can confront a fear without feeling any type of emotional response, that means that you're much, much closer to being that very authentic and aligned version of yourself.
Right. See, this is the part. See, I think people want to dismiss. I run across this in my clients. I'm sure you do too, but they often want to dismiss. They'll say, "I'm not afraid." I'm like, "No, you are. You're
They're
angry.
afraid. Yeah.
You are. You're angry." No, I'm not. I'm not angry. I'm like, "Oh, you're shouting at me. That's anger." I mean, you're angry, and there's a basis for that. Is because you're free, because you don't want to. You're not living your authentic self. Whenever you have fear, it's impossible for you to live authentically.
Yeah. You nailed it, guy. And it's so hard for people to recognize that, because it was ingrained in them at such a young age. And if they don't have emotionally developed people around them, calling them out in the moment, on the spot, when those emotions are happening, they're going to continue to repeat them for an indefinite period of time. So they really need those folks around them, calling them out in the moment, on the spot, so they know for sure when they're doing something that's actually not contributing to their growth.
I love it. His name, Michael S. Seaver. By the way, are you having as much fun as I am?
I'm stoked, man. I'm jacked. So yes, thank you.
Yeah, I'm having a blast. I can't. I got people. I'm having a blast. I just am. His book is called, I know, A Practical Guide for Awakening to What's Within and Finding Your Work Life Integration. It's good. It's really good. You got to really get a hold of it. You're listening to him here on A New Direction. Hey, listen, Epic Physical Therapy. I tell you about them all the time. I got to just tell you something. Look, they offer the most advanced top of the line equipment, like the Ultra G anti-gravity treadmill, the Normatec compression sleeves, game ready, my favorite. That's ice and compression. It's just awesome. Listen, they're certified the most comprehensive cutting edge therapies like blood flow restriction therapy, dry needling, cupping. That's just a few. Look, when you're ready for your epic relief, your epic recovery, your epic results, don't look any further. Go to Epic PT. That's epicpt.com, EPICPT.com. And Linda Craft and Team Realtors for more than 35 years. She has been in the triangle of the United States here in North Carolina, but I got to tell you something. She helps people all over the world, and she's been doing that when the internet in 1997. Yeah, she had a website and she was literally helping people all over the world then. She's still doing that today. You know what? I'm just telling you. She has the experience. Check out her website, lindacraft.com. It is amazing. She can help you navigate these rough waters when it comes to real estate. Check her out, lindacraft.com. That's LINDACRAFT.com. And we're back here on A New Direction with my friend, Michael Seaver. And I left out the S. Sorry.
That's okay.
Is that okay?
I don't want people to confuse me for Mike Seaver from Growing Pains.
Right. Yeah. Nobody would want to do that. I know. I hope not.
But Jay, just so you know, my middle name is Scott, so I could also be confused for Steve Carell on The Office.
Oh, Michael Scott. Yeah, right. Yeah, Michael Scott. That's not good for any of us. I think we need to let the coach him. Okay. So we're talking about authenticity here, and but one of the things that you say in chapter 3, which is entitled Emotional Release, as humans, we must experience all emotions, is what you say. The purpose of your earth walk is to build emotional resilience, to not be triggered by circumstances that previously triggered you.
Yeah.
One of my core values is resilience. And so I believe that resilience is key to success. I just believe that's one of the heartful keys, and I live resiliently. And so, but I think it's really important that we understand emotional resilience, because people can allow their emotions to get the best of them.
Yeah. They really do. And it's going back to those mental models that were implanted in when they were young. There are 5 core dimensions of EQ, right? Self-awareness, social awareness, self-regulation, social regulation, and motivation. So resilience is kind of akin to motivation in where I'm certified through TTI in North Scottsdale, Arizona. The way that I look at this is that when everything absolutely hits the fan, and there are no other external drives or motivators that can keep you going, money or any of that stuff, right? If you're cared for in all those ways, and you're confronted with life's biggest challenges, how is it that you're going to remain resilient and motivated through those things, right? And oftentimes, I think the key to being able to do that is to be able to rely on some set of core values or some personal mission or some belief in some deity that you might believe in that helps you with that. So as you're navigating life, you're going to be confronted by a series of challenges that are going to be increasingly more and more and more difficult. But you know that you have found success when you experience roughly the same event today that you might have 10 years ago, but today you feel no emotional response to it. So that's what life is that you identify the patterns of the things that are coming to you. And if you don't feel emotion today to something that you might have in the past, that's how you know you've grown. That's how you know you've become more resilient.
Right. Yeah. I say that we have 3 things that we are in control of at all times. I'm in control of my attitude, I'm in control of my effort, and I'm in control of getting back up again.
Perfect. That's amazing.
You know, I mean, it doesn't matter, right? I mean, I am controlling my attitude. My wife and I live by what we call the 100% rule. I'm 100% responsible because, you know, most people think relationships are 50-50, but we live by the 100% relationship rule. I'm 100% responsible for what I say, 100% responsible for what I do, and I'm 100% responsible for how I respond to her, regardless of what she says or does to me.
Yeah, so good.
Right? That's the 100% rule, right?
Yeah.
I'm in complete control of my effort, right? Only I really know how hard I worked. Right? It's really impossible for someone else to judge because you know what? You will judge somebody, go, guy, it just didn't look like they worked very hard. Right? Because you know why? They've done all the hard work before. So all of a sudden it looks easy, but they've really done a lot of hard work.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Behind the scenes. Yeah.
Right. And also results don't always equate with hard work. A lot of times people don't do anything and they get.
Yeah.
And a lot of times people work as hard as they can to get nothing.
Yeah.
So sometimes we get mistaken by results and effort, and that doesn't always work. And the truth of the matter is, you know, as I've learned from these Navy SEALs and Delta Force guys and, you know, generals and these people that I've interviewed here, you got to take one more step. You got to get up. You got to get up.
Yeah. It's so hard. It's
right?
so hard, but it's so worth it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it hurts, but you got to take one more step.
Yeah. Yeah, I was on stage a couple of days ago in Cleveland, Ohio, with a guy named Mark Schulman, who was drummer for David Bowie. He was drummer for, maybe you've seen him. He's now drummer for Pink. And so he had done some really, really significant work in that field. And so he was on stage talking about nearly identical things to what Jay is saying right now. So please key in on what Jay is saying around attitude, because he gave a lot of great examples of various things that were happening throughout his time as a drummer. And every single time there was a mistake in front of 100,000 people, what the artist did or what Mark did was get up, right? He had to get up. It's like the attitude of, I need to be in service. Here we are with those words again.
Right.
We need to be in service of the audience, the people that have come to be able to participate. So I'm going to be in service by, even though this malfunction or this thing happened, I'm going to get up and keep being resilient and keep putting on the best show to be in service of the people around me as I can.
Absolutely. God, that's good stuff. Which gets us to part 2, discovery.
Okay.
Right? Move through the emotional neutral zone. I love that. I couldn't help it. I had to go hockey here. You move through the emotional neutral zone. I mean, we're in the middle of the, Carolina Hurricanes are in the, are in the playoffs, and the neutral zone is that little area between the two, blue lines, and so right. So you move through the emotional neutral zone where you will uncover your core values, a personal mission, and set goals to align your time. This is awesome. People, if you want to check yourself at the door right now, because what we're going to embark on here, and what Michael's going to teach you is your life's mission. And and that's chapter 4, and we're going to help you get there. I'm going to jump way ahead here. Actually, I'm going to get probably over to chapter 5, right? Or no, I guess it's chapter 4. So, and you say your personal mission. So let's talk about that, Michael, from your view. You ask some questions here, but let's talk about your personal mission, because I don't think people really know what the personal mission is.
Many don't. And so mine is I exist to unlock human potential through the development of personal and professional well-being. And so what I try to do inside of I Know, right? Because it's not that Michael S. Seaver knows the answers to every single person on the word, right? But I Know is teaching people to trust their intuition and to say to themselves that they know. So part of the process for understanding what it is that your life's mission is that I put you through a series of activities that help you define a one-sentence statement, or in some cases, one word, if that's your preference. So for me, it would be authenticity. For Jay, it would be authenticity. But we want to get you to the point of having a mission statement, because corporations and organizations and not-for-profits have them. You can have it too. So what I ask people to do, and I'll give you just the quick kind of 5 tools, Jay, and then I'll share how it connects back in.
Sure.
Is that I ask people to do a DISC assessment, right, which is a communication profile, but you could do Myers-Briggs, you could do predictive index, you could do emergenetics. There's any numbers that are out there, right? But that's your overt communication and behavioral style. Number 2, I ask you to consider what are the main motivators, right? And I'm certified to use an assessment that helps you to understand what motivates you, from money to selflessness to altruism to being in a structured environment. There's 12 core motivators. Then you got to know your core values. And there's a couple of assessments online that can help you with that. And there's also a very long past, present, and future Q&A inside chapter 4. And then I want you to think about what is it that you can do to really address your strengths and your skills and the things that really are your authority. So if you collect those 5 data points about yourself, and then you look across all of them and you identify 5, 6, or 7 patterns, you are then going to be very easily able to write your personal mission statement. Because what I've been taught over time, and what I try to help folks maybe do this too, Jay, is that reacting to something without taking time to like really pay attention to it and understand the consequences of your reaction is not as good as acting on a set of patterns. So I'm very focused on helping people understand that when you see a pattern, 3, 4, 5 of something, that's when you act. And so that's why I asked folks in chapter 4 to collect that data about yourself that you might not otherwise know, identify the patterns that exist across all 5. And from that, you can write that personal mission. And that helps you so much as you navigate down the road, because anything that does not align with your personal mission, you just say no. Like, simple.
Right. Well, so here's where we're similar. I have what I call the 3 A's. Okay. Right. It's affinity, aptitude, and affirmation. Okay. And if you look at it as a Venn diagram, right? What do you have an affinity for doing? What do you have the aptitude to do? And then what are people affirming you? And if you find that overlapping thing between those 3 things, those are your natural giftings.
Yeah, I love that.
Right. And so when you find those natural giftings, right, and which is what I help people do, right, then that start leading us to a purpose. And it may not have anything to do, by the way, with your education, because I am not doing anything that has to do with my education. Right. I mean, truth of the matter, I've never taken a broadcasting class in my life. Right. And here I am, right, doing what I'm doing. I got a C in remedial English in college, and I've written 4 books. Right. And then I've been translating to foreign languages. Right. I've never taken a speech class in my life. I speak all over. I just spoke in Nebraska just a couple weeks ago and get paid to do it. Right. I mean, I'm not, so I'm not doing anything that I really went to college and graduate school to do, but I'm doing this because this is what I'm naturally gifted at. And it excites me every day. Right. Just like it excites you to do what you're doing every day. We're excited to do it. And this is where you got to put all that data together. You got to pay attention to what things are going around you, because it's there. It's there. Right. Yeah. I know.
That's the hard part, Jay, is getting folks to slow down in a society that values busyness.
Right. I want to just go through these. These are questions that Michael asks about your personal mission. And then these are beautiful questions. So write these down, people. What makes you different? What makes you unique? How can you help others? What is your why? And turn that into a sentence.
Yeah. Just I exist too, and then fill in the blank.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
No, you asked the right questions because those will help to trigger some ideas and some thoughts.
Right.
But it's just the way that it's easy for a person to couch it is to say, okay, I've got all these ideas down now that I've asked myself these questions, and just say, I exist too, and then just fill in the blank and just write as many things down as you can the first time, and then edit and iterate and experiment. And then 30 days later, because you don't have to do this overnight, take 30 days or so, and then talk to some of your closest friends, talk to some family members, talk to a coach. Does this sound like me? Which one do you think feels better? And then all of a sudden, after 30 days, you've got this thing that you know is authentically you because it feels right for you, but you've also had people around you who know you well validate you. Now you've got something that you can go and make different choices based on.
Right. I did this. By the way, I did this process I used Facebook. I asked people, give me one word that you would describe me. And it really helped solidify my own mission, right? For me personally, which is my mission is to positively inspire resilience and growth in others. That's it.
Yeah.
Right. That's my mission in life, right? Is to do that. And whatever. And I use these different platforms to do that, right? To make that happen. And I get guests like you who make that happen. It's really awesome. You have, let's talk quickly. I know we shouldn't, but we've been on an hour already. Let's talk real quickly about core values, because I think a lot of our mission has to come from our core.
It really does. And the way that I perceive core values are kind of like not only maybe the things that were taught to you via your parents in those younger years, maybe the lessons that you've learned throughout your life. But my top 3 core values, and they're inside chapter 4. I talk about all 6. But my top 3 are authenticity, growth, and spirituality. And so when you can very clearly know what your top core values are and then start to redistribute time based on those core values, I promise you that you're going to feel way more engaged. You're going to feel way more connected to that mission. You're going to know what your personal version of happiness and joy is. So it takes a little bit of time, and there's some assessments online, of course, that you can utilize to understand what these things are about yourself. But going back to what we talked about at the beginning, you have to start to navigate change a little bit by saying no to things not connected to your core values or your mission. That's
awesome. Michael, tell everybody how they can get a hold of you.
Yeah. So if anybody's interested, obviously you can get this book on Google, Amazon, Apple, Barnes & Noble. There's lots of different places. So look for I Know and Michael S. Seaver. And/or you are welcome to visit michaelseaver.com, which is a repository for all things helping people move from that place of disengagement to that place of absolutely loving their life.
Awesome. Folks, that's the show. You know what I say to you every week? Here it is. You got 3 things that you're in control of: your attitude, your effort, and your resilience. Get up. You can make it happen. I know it's hard, but you can. Take one more step. You can do it. I promise you can. I believe in you. I know you are, and I'm proud of you. So let's go. Let's do it. I'll be back next week with another great guest. It's going to be another great book. It's going to be another great show. And as I say to you every week, and you know what that is, everybody all over the world, ciao, everybody.